Good afternoon, folks, and thanks for joining us. My name is Tim Wheaton with Kickboxing, joined by the one and only Karate Combat League President, Adam Kovacs. How are you doing today, sir?
Good. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, man, I'm pumped that you're here. Let me ask you, how do you deal with people saying your name incorrectly all the time?
I don't give a shit. Even sometimes I mess it up as well. You know, some like in Hungarian you say Kovacs.
Yeah.
You know, when I try to say my name in English, I do say Kovacs. So don't worry about it, you know, and I don't care if anybody fucks it up. I don't take it personally.
Perfect. Good stuff. So take me back to the very beginning. How did you get involved? How did you first get exposed to karate? Well, who were some of the fighters that you looked up to just when you were a young man getting started out?
Oh man, that was a while ago. So I started karate when I was 9. I'm 42 now, so it's been a while. But actually, that's a funny story. My father had a colleague, a friend, who said that there's a karate club over here, and you should bring your son. And I went there. I was like 5, as I said, and you know, after 5 minutes, I ran out like crying because people were like shouting and kicking and punching each other, and I said like, this is not for me. And then a few years later, I had a bad experience. I already kind of went to school by myself on public transportation. I had a bad experience, and also had some influence with the Bruce Lee movies back then. And then I said, all right, I want to be able to defend myself if the situation comes. And then I asked my parents that I wanna go back. And funny enough, you know, we went to a club, a gym, and they were playing ball. You know, they were like playing some games, the kids. So I said like, okay, this is for me. Karate is for me because you can play with a ball. And then, you know, after like 10 minutes, we started the training, and then, you know, I never really stopped. I finished competing when I was 32, and I started in the national team when I was 16. So 16 years in a national team, I competed at all the European championships and all the world championships. I never missed one.
Man, that is absolutely awesome. I can't believe you went back after running out and crying. Like I think that's a great attitude to have learned, though. Like something pushed you back and you went back and you conquered it.
Yeah. And I mean, I think I was like scrolling through Instagram today, and some like guru was saying that, you know, like we changed so much that, you know, like something what's normal to us today might be completely abnormal the other day, or something we feel weird about this year, then we're totally fine with it. And I think it was similar like this. And it's also, I would say, it matters where you go, you know, like if you are surrounded with likewise people, or people like similar to you, or, you know, like they invite you in and welcome you in, then you feel good, you feel appreciated. And I think that's what happened. You know, the first place maybe was a McDojo or something along those lines. And, you know, I could feel it from the beginning. At the second place, you know, that was something where they hooked me, and, you know, I got in love with karate for sure. You know, you asked me who I looked up to. Yeah. There was many competitors I looked up to specifically, and I had a chance to fight with him. It was Alexander Biamonti from France. He was a multiple time, I think 11-time European champion, 2 times world champion. And then came the Agaev era, Agaev, who fights with us these days.
I was going to say, yeah.
I also fought with him. I lost to him back in the days. So, you know, I had some good days. I won the World Games. I won 3 medals at the World Championships. But, you know, there were some guys who are just different level.
Man, and there's so much great karate out there. I'm surprised that someone like you, that transitioning over into K1 during that same kind of time, because there were some very good Kyokushin karate fighters like a Francisco Filio, Semi Schiltz, Andy Hug, like converted directly into K1 kickboxing. Why did you not look at that kind of career as the next natural step for you?
I think I was competing at the World Games in Duisburg back in 2005, and these were the days, you know, the big days for K1, you know, like Ignashov, all these Dutch guys. I was like stuck at Eurosport back in Budapest, where I grew up,
Hmm.
and that had a big influence on me. And still, like with things we build with karate combat, I think that influence is still there. And they asked me if I wanted to do K1, and I was thinking about it for sure. Uh, but at the same time, that was a transition time for me of becoming good at what I did with amateur karate at the World Karate Federation. And
Hmm.
I think then K1 started to, not be the same anymore. And then the UFC and MMA came, and then for me it was just I didn't want to transition after the age of 30. Maybe I was comfortable enough. I did transition in a way because I started doing BJJ when I was cooling down from karate
Yeah.
12 years ago. But that was always not to compete in MMA, not to compete even in BJJ, although I had a few tournaments, but just to be a martial artist, to experience something which is completely different than the striking game. I always loved grappling, so that is something. I actually just finished BJJ an hour ago,
Nice.
so that is something I enjoy a lot.
Man, that's absolutely awesome. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, that early K1 era, just for like, there was like 5 amazing years where nothing was better than K1
Yeah,
on earth. That was awesome, eh?
it was amazing. And then K1 Max came on, and those guys, under 70 kg, like Masato and
Yeah,
Genki Sudo and all
yeah,
these big names. Like
yeah.
I was literally, those were also the early days for the internet, right? So
Yes.
it wasn't like YouTube was big and you could watch everything online. So you really had to do your research. And I think it was Norifumi Yamamoto, who passed
Yeah.
away a few years ago. May he rest in peace, who had a big influence on me, not only because of his fighting style, but also his fashion, the love for fashion. And, I think he lived in the US for a couple of years. So like that had an influence on him.
Yeah.
And he loved all those cars, and he was a superstar, although like he was a very small guy, but back in the days in Japan, things were just different.
Man, I think one thing that came across really well with Kid Yamamoto was, like you were saying, this was an era where you couldn't really stream anything. You could barely
Yeah.
download it. You had to like know a guy on Sherdog and he would
Yes.
send you a clip. But Kid Yamamoto's clips could come across so well because it's like a 4-second knockout where he ran across the
Correct.
ring.
Yeah.
You could see it instantly. You know what I mean?
Yep. Absolutely. And the when you looked at a K1 tournament and the full arena of, I don't know, 20,000 people, maybe 30,000 people in Japan, in Tokyo, and people are cheering, that was something else. And like even these days, Dream and Rising and
Yep.
these guys are trying to do something similar, but it's just not the same.
So, okay, man, you've hit on something that I talk about all the time, is that Pride and K1 existed for a shorter amount of period than Ryzen and Dream combined have. And the influence that Pride and K1, we still talk about it today. We don't
Yeah.
talk about Ryzen and Dream, maybe enough. I mean, they had great moments, but it's just crazy how much magic, or there was some driving force behind K1 and Pride. That era, that boom of Japan was incredible.
Yeah, but you know what? I think maybe I'm wrong, but if you look at these organizations today, then they mostly have Japanese fighters. So it's almost like a local show. And sometimes they put in guys from here or there, from Georgia or some other countries. But back in the days, you would have a tournament where you would have one Japanese. So like it was almost like these superstars coming in from the USA, from Holland, from France,
Yes.
Jerome Le Banner,
Yeah.
and these big names who became superstars. They couldn't walk on the streets, and I think that was a big difference. It could really feel like a world championships. Now these days, it feels like a Japanese championship where you just have a few names inserted into the tournament.
Yeah, kickboxing
And
is a
it's
little
not
bit.
even tournament style anymore, by the way.
No, it's not. I think they're doing their rebirth and revival right now because things are
Yeah.
kind of cooking in Japan right now. But yeah, kickboxing is very segmented, isn't it? Like Glory does Europe, and then you got like K1 doing things. One picks up here and there, but it's a little bit segmented. But you know, one of the weird things, and this story just came out with the K1 rebirth, is that if you had to be a fighter going through one of their like approved gyms, and if you were a fighter who was in a Kyokushin karate gym, you actually weren't allowed to compete in K1 until this year. So for
Okay.
like 10 years, they turned their back on Kyokushin karate for some reason. So I'm now, that actually leads back to my question in our interview is Japan. There seems to be some opportunity where there was Kyokushin karate fighters just kind of left out. They weren't allowed to compete. Is Japan a target for you guys?
I mean, how could it not be? Because, like we're I would say right now we're more of a striking league of a combination, mostly karate, but now we're integrating, awesome kickboxers, Raymond Daniels, Gabriel Varga,
Mm-hmm.
and many others. Um, at the same time, the Japanese market is so difficult.
Yeah.
Like we tried back in the days in 2018 to do an event in I think it was Kyoto, where we wanted to do an event. We went there, and like it seemed like we can do one, but then it became so difficult and so
Mm.
expensive, and also the way the Japanese fighters are connected to their little tribes, or
Yeah.
like their masters, their senseis, or an organization. They're not allowed to do anything without the permission. And like I think, not I think, but I know we had Yomi Yahara, who's a Kyokushin fighter, and he
Mm-hmm.
debuted with us back in July. That was the first Japanese fighter ever in the Karate Combat Pit, and not because we never wanted a Japanese fighter.
Mm-hmm.
It's because like we had 2 or 3 guys signed, but whenever the time came, they couldn't show up because their sensei, their coach, their organization, federation just didn't let them do it. And many times I've got people sent my way, like,
Yeah.
okay, here's a guy, he's really great from Japan, take a look, and potentially sign him. And all I do, I go to Sherdog or Tapology or somewhere, and I see the guy only fought in Japan. I said, like, I cannot touch that person, because what happens, we reach out, they say, yes, I love karate combat, I want to fight, here is the number of my manager, and then
Right.
everything stops, and then it's just a waste of time, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. It is a little bit of an odd system with their gym setup of like you as the promoter actually need to get on with the gym better than you need to get on with any of the fighters.
Correct.
And there's nothing wrong with it. It just is doing business a little bit differently in Japan, and that's what
Yeah.
most people say. Anything business wise in Japan, it's just going to be a little bit different, right?
No, for sure. And yeah, nothing, that it's just cultural difference. Like you go to Japan as a European, as an American, or from anywhere else in the world, even from Asia, right?
Mm-hmm.
You go to Japan from a different spot, it's just so different, and that's why they're unique. That's why like we like them or you don't like them, whatever. Whenever I was in Japan, like I had an amazing time. I competed actually in the Nippon Budokan. I got silver medal at the World Championships there. But I was there for like 2 weeks, and it's just impossible, like almost so difficult to understand each other. The respect is there, you always bow, you like each other. But as you said, when you want to do business, when you want to do something, or even get the word to their head, it's just, you never know if it arrives, or it arrives, but maybe in a completely different way. So it's interesting for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. So take me back a little bit here. So your parents they founded a stationery company. And at that point, this had kind of, this feels like a catalyst moment in your life where you picked up on, oh, being an entrepreneur, that is my future. Walk me through here, kind of the history and how it led to where you are now.
Um, that's a big pain point for my parents, because as they did work in the corporate world back in the days, and then they founded their own company back in 1990. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's very like close to when I started karate. I started at 89,
Mm-hmm.
and then they always felt that either my sister or myself should take over the business. And I never wanted to do that, because like once I got the virus in with no vaccine or whatever, and the virus was karate, then I knew that probably this is the thing I want to do. And I also want to prove to them, to myself, that I cannot, not only can do karate as a competitor, as an athlete, but I will also be able to make money and also be able to make a difference. And, like this is what I want to do. This is, I want to leave a mark, not just myself, but with the organization. And at the same time, they had their entrepreneurial, it's a difficult word,
Yes, it is.
mindset, which I always, like I was observing, not even from afar, but close by, although training and competing worldwide. And I saw how it is to start a business, to be a startup, and then open a store, open another one, like try to grow, and, all the growing pains with having employees, maybe 20, maybe 40. And then, sometimes I had good inputs for them. I didn't really work there, not on the day-to-day for sure, but I studied marketing and business studies. So like I tried to help. At the same time, I knew that I never want to sell pen or pencil, like it's just like I'm not the Wolf of Wall Street and this is a pen, just sell it. I knew that I was always wanted to be like a sportsman and be around the sport, and specifically sports and entertainment. And, that's why I think what we do is important, is sport, but it's also entertainment. And that's why you have the UFC and professional boxing and all these big sponsors and big TV deals. This is something which always excited me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And speaking of sport entertainment, Karate Combat seems to fill a gap, because watching, I love international karate, love karate in the Olympics and stuff like that, but it does seem like it's almost missing the combat part of it. Stop me when I'm wrong. I always want to be respectful because I know what kind of people are going to be tuning in, and I don't want to offend you or anything like that. But it seems like Karate Combat actually did fill in that gap that a lot of people did want when they were watching karate. Do you know what I'm saying here?
Yeah, people were, you're probably a weirdo like myself. Yes. Because people don't watch karate. That's the big problem. Most of the people until the Olympics, the Tokyo Olympics, they didn't even know what karate was in a way. Like, is it the forms, or, is it actually fighting? And I was like, I love every aspect of karate, but I said, like, somebody switches the TV on and they see a kata.
Yes.
And this is what karate will be in their head, because then they're going to turn it off. Then it's a problem, right? And I almost feel similar to the style, the Kumite at the Olympics, which I did for years and years, but I also felt that we need a better recognition, and that is only enjoyable for people who are practicing it. So and when it's something is only enjoyable for people practicing, or not even for them because the rules sometimes are so stupid, then you've got a problem in terms of selling it or making it not mainstream, but making it bigger. And, also for us, if you talk to Bas or anybody else, combat sports, it's supposed to be full contact in a way, because otherwise it's you have this fake idea, or does it work or it doesn't. I know many people who could be the best karate players or karate fighters, but they could never really fight actually. So like how can you be a karate champion when you cannot actually fight? That's a hard sell. And this is something we wanted to change as well. If you're a karate combat champion, I'm telling you, man, then you can fight whoever and whenever. Maybe you don't win if you're fighting with a bigger guy who's also experienced, but you're gonna have the balls to stand there and brawl.
But I love karate, love all the traditions, love your stuff that you're talking about. But you are saying something that a lot of the early people in Kyokushin karate were talking about, because Masoyama taught it. And then a lot of his first students, like Joe, and I forget his name, all the guys who went into Dutch kickboxing essentially said what you just said, of like, we're almost missing something in combat. So these guys kind of went back to the Netherlands, invented Dutch style kickboxing. But it's kind of something that people have talked about for a while, of like, there's almost something missing here, right?
Yeah. And you have the same issue with Kyokushin, because like Kyokushin people, they claim that it is full contact, but how can you claim it when you cannot punch the head. Like it's something which is so essential to fighting. It's like the number one thing. Like you go to a wrestling tournament, right?
Yeah.
And people start a brawl, they will try to punch each other in the face, although they've been practicing wrestling forever.
Yeah.
So I mean that is instinct. That's what happens, and that's why I feel for sure Kyokushin people are probably the toughest guys on earth when it comes to their body, when comes to their thigh, and like also like the punishment they can take is unbelievable. At the same time, you never know if they got a chin or not, because they never been exposed to like punches to the head.
Yeah, and I sparred with one of my Kyokushin karate friends one day, and he kicked me in the body, and I was like, bro, can you just kick me in the face? That hurts so much more than I thought it did.
Yeah, because then at least you can get unconscious and you don't feel the pain.
It hurts so much, man. But let's move forward here. Some of the influence of karate. I mean, karate certainly has tenets and it certainly has philosophies. Do you think any of those influences the way that you work as a leader of a company or as an entrepreneur?
For sure. I mean, like I wouldn't say that I live by a set of rules or by the book, but like when I've been doing karate since I was 9, competing until I was 32. Since then, I'm close to karate and doing BJJ. So like you have the respect, you have the values, you know that you have to work really, really hard, to get from one point to another. First it took me 10 years to get the black belt in karate, not even 10, more than 10 years, because back in Hungary, you had to be minimum 18 years old. Like to get a black belt. You couldn't get it before. It's not like here in the US, like you've got like a fast expedited 1-year program of getting a black belt. So that was like 10 years, and then another 20 years passed. Now I'm black belt in BJJ. It took me 10 years as well. And that gives you something which I would say other sports can as well, like the hard work, the sweat, the blood, the injuries and everything. You go through life with all these things. So I believe that I have these principles, and I'm trying to pass that to my kids. But when it comes to the league and the organization, this is how I try to live my life. But I'm also surrounded with other people. There's a lot of things moving on. Also we're in the entertainment business, when like respect just doesn't sell. It's like trash talk do sell. And so like we kind of need to balance the way where it doesn't become boring and nobody cares about it, because then the league won't be able to survive. So that, and I've got partners, and like we've got owners who think differently, not in a bad way. And then, we try to balance each other. Maybe sometimes we do fight each other. Like I say, no, we cannot do this with the fighters. We do have to respect them. And then, they convince me that at least let's talk to them to see, if they're comfortable. And then I'm totally fine with that as well. But I think as a karate league, even as a striking league, if it was K1, you need to have these kind of principles or bricks there. Just to be able to look in the mirror every day.
Well, and I agree with you on that. I mean, the reason that I think martial arts teaches so much with respect and honor is because it's a very thin line versus just people beating the hell out of each other. If you don't have that kind of base of respect and honor, that's what separates it from a sport versus just a bunch of dudes beating each other up. And there's nothing wrong with a bunch of dudes beating each other up. I'm okay with that too. But if you want to promote it as a sport, I think you need that respect, right?
Yes, no, for sure. And again, but it's hard because, like, for example, we would like to promote and market our fighters as much as possible. But, like when, like all of them are very respectful. And when we see somebody come into the system who is not as much, or like understands the game better, then, we see on the numbers immediately, then people are more excited to see that fight than the other one. Like we cannot do anything with, where you need the face and the heel, like you need something for people to tune in and, they want to hate one of the guys and they want to love the other one. So, when both of them are just super likable, that's, again, it's a hard sell. They can still really fight well, but then we have to elevate the level of fighting into like levels where people are saying like, okay, I don't care if they're respectful or not, but these are the best fighters in the world.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it seemed like early on you guys were struggling a little bit with, it was almost an uphill battle to get the combat sports media to really start looking at this. But something changed over the last year and a half now, where karate combat is kind of an MMA media darling. What did you guys change? What did you guys do to make the media be on your side?
I mean, I still feel that we've got a lot to work on. Um, but look, I mean, there were a few fights which put us on the map for sure. You know, Agaev and Raymond Daniels, for example, and Raymond Daniels did fight in Bellator, did fight in MMA. We've got GSP, Wonderboy, Lyoto Machida, all these legends, you know, as part of our league. You know, they are true believers. You know, they are league ambassadors and senseis and boss. You know, so like when these guys are, you know, in love with the product, and you know, when you have Alex Pereira show up not once but twice on our event, and like the first time we invited him, we didn't pay him. We said like, listen, you want to come? Like, we were in Orlando, right, at Universal Studio. We said like, come with your kids, you're gonna have a great time and you're gonna see the pit and the fights. And he said like, okay, let's do it. And next time we were there in Miami, like a week before his fight. And then, you know, like I talked to his manager because we had some other business going on. And I said like, he said like, Adam, Pereira wants to come. Everybody want to come. So like, I mean, that shows you that we've got something going on, and, you know, like people love it. It's just a different experience, especially when you're there live. And I think it comes through, and it's hard work, because some people still like, oh, okay, it's karate, if it's not MMA, I don't care. But you know, whenever we had press and media around our fights, they, you know, like they just loved it. So I think that's about it. But honestly, I would feel maybe a little bit better if some of them would shit on us. You know, like then it would actually start a conversation. And, you know, again, it's the same thing with the respect, you know, like it's you see Dana White shitting on the media. I won't start shitting on the media, but it also helps both of them, because clicks go through, because this is what people want to read about, you know, like this is what they care about. Okay, this is what this he said, that said. So I think we still got a lot of work to do. But you know, it's a process. It's a step-by-step process.
All right, help me out. I'll write it right here in front of you. Let me log into my WordPress. Okay. What do you want me to trash you guys about? I'll do it with you right now.
Whatever you want, man. I don't know. It's hey, I just spoke to the league president and he's an asshole.
All right, that is good stuff. And I wanted to ask, I didn't know that you guys internally have had these kind of conversations, but there is a little bit of prestige. There's almost a feather in the cap by being on traditional TV, even if it doesn't bring actual real benefits, but it certainly brings, you know, a feather in the cap kind of thing. But you guys do all of your production through karate.com, which is just, it's so accessible to everyone. And I feel like in this age, that is the right way to go. But what if those conversations sounded like that you guys are sticking with digital media and really a TV deal in traditional media, maybe not on the table for now?
No, I mean, we do have global distribution in over 100 countries, but that's the difficult conversations we have with TVs and distribution partners, that we never want to give them the right for our digital rights. And we always tell them that the only way they're going to get our IP or our product if we are able to stream it at the same time. And then, you know, then it's not so interesting for them. Right. Although, you know, like some of them still take it, you know, some of them are not doing it live, but doing it a little bit later. But we've got really good partners. We've got Eurosport in Europe, which is like 40 plus countries. And then we've got Combate Global in Brazil, which is huge. CBS Sports we have in the US. It's not live, but it's live to not live to tape, but it's tape delayed. And then you know, many other countries we have. But again, this is also like an ongoing conversation internally, where it's like, okay, we want as many eyeballs as possible. How can we do that? If we put a paywall in front of our product, then it's going to be hard, especially at this stage of our existence.
Yeah.
At the same time, it's a psychological thing, which I always argue with my partners, that, people might feel that if we don't charge, then it's not valuable, or like, like sometimes people need to pay to feel that they, like it brings them value. And also in the fight game, people are just, used to paying for pay-per-views, or, like ESPN Plus, or, you name it. Although people steal it and stream it. So like, like with ours, it's like we do encourage people not to steal it, but stream it. Like we won't get into a fight with anybody if they take our feed basically and put it on their YouTube channel, and if they generate 1 million views, because this is 1 million views for us. So I think, that's the mindset we take. And I think we're just ahead of our time, because eventually people will transition to this one, because people don't want to pay the Zone, ESPN, Fight, and like all these other subscriptions, because it's just like too expensive. And maybe once in a while you've got a fight there which are exciting, which you would actually pay for. But then like the whole model is like, okay, pay every month, and then maybe once in a while you get a fight. So right now we're happy with being able to stream it live and free. When it comes to all our live shows, we don't only stream it on karate.com, but on our YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, everywhere. We're going to do the same with the Kumite, which airs this Thursday. And time will tell. We do things a little bit differently, like we have a big crypto project going on around the whole league. Like we've got the karate tokens. It's a government token, so people can actually have a say in what happens with the league. Like they can vote on the fighters and the fights when we go live. So I think there's a lot of elements into it which are still, for some people, are hard to process, or it's just like step by step. But once the tipping point comes, then you would feel that, okay, Karate Combat was here forever. And of course, this is like a big sport.
Well, yeah, you really hit the nail on the head there with, it's almost like we don't entirely know what TV and what the streaming world is going to look like even 3 years from now. Of like, just not long ago, being on a premium HD channel would have been the best thing. But then tying your ship to that now, looking back, you're like, oh, that's such an antiquated thing. So like, we just don't know of what the future of TV. And I know you guys have had that conversation, but like, even if someone like a Netflix approaches you guys, it still needs to be on your terms. Is that correct?
Look, let's see if that happens. Okay. Like for example, we did the seasonal format before going to the live shows here in the US. Yeah. And I was on Twitter pitching Netflix to take it because it's perfect for them. Like we had 12 episodes in a season. There was some storytelling. The whole environments were crazy. Like we went back in the days to Okinawa when karate started, and then it went to Hollywood, like where with the movies karate became even bigger, and then we ended up in the future when karate was the biggest sport in the world. So there were so many elements which probably could be good for Netflix, and especially right now when everybody is like not willing to work because like all the script writers and the actors. So like, but here we are putting on shows, and like, so maybe sport, and you could see with golf, with Formula One, and all these other, like even Jake Paul's got his own special now on Netflix. So I think there's a transition there, and like if the time is right, if everything works out well, then I'm not saying that we would say no to a deal with such a big distribution partner.
Awesome stuff. And tell me a little bit more about the Kumite coming up on August 10th here, which I couldn't believe that it's already this Thursday. Oh my God. Yes. So with the growth of Karate Combat, why was this such an important addition to what you folks are already offering? It seems like because this is something, it's outside the regular shows. It's something like maybe you don't get a huge investment back, but it seemed like an important thing that you guys really wanted to invest in. Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, we had this idea since 2018 to do something where we try to find new fighters because we've got a limited amount of spots for fighters on our live shows. We only do usually like 10 fights on a live show, and we've got over 100 fighters exclusively under contract with us. So there is, like minimum 2 fights a year, what we do need to give them. So, there are a lot of new guys who are willing to come into the league, but we are unable to give them a spot. And we wanted to figure out a way how we can take a look at them and see how they would perform in the pit, and also give them the opportunity to perform in the pit before they perform in the pit, if you know what I mean. Because it's, like a live event scenario with, like people pit side, like cheering is completely different than, what we produced with the Kumite. Yeah. And also we wanted to do something where we can experiment with things, like for example, we now on Thursday, we're going to introduce the amateur karate combat rule set, which is a huge deal. And I'll tell you why, because now this new rule set will allow karate organizations worldwide to use this rule set in their existing tournaments to start a full contact discipline. So for example, let's say you would have an amateur karate tournament with kata, the form, then you would have kumite with the semi-contact or no contact way of fighting. And the third one would be a full contact, but it's still kind of controlled, which would be a karate combat rule set. So, then it doesn't need the pit. It could be on the same mats as, the tournament goes on. But, like we've got the rule set with the 6-ounce gloves for the amateurs. We've got the 5-second rule for the pro fights. Now this is only 3. So after there's a takedown or a sweep, then there is a ground and pound for 3 seconds. And then you cannot knee to the head. And there are a few other differences between the pro rule set and the amateur one. Also, it's only 2-minute rounds, 2 times 2-minute round. And if it's a split score or if it's a draw, then it goes to the extra round. So, that's one thing which is not really, it's not the Kumite rule set. It's the amateur karate combat rule set. The Kumite is also a karate combat brand, which the first one was almost like a talent show, like America Got Idol or America, what's the show?
American Ninja Warrior?
No. It's just
America's Got Talent?
America's Got Talent, yeah, exactly. So Bas, Samuel Erickson, and myself, we are the ones selecting after the fight who goes to the next round until the actual final, when we do have the judges deciding and scoring the fights. But what I'm trying to say is the Kumite is everything what we can imagine. So the first one is something mini tournaments with the amateur rule set, with, like the Cobra Kai style gis. Yeah. And maybe the second one will be blood sport. The third one maybe will be country against country or gym against gym or something, whatever we want to do. One thing I would say is that we try to do it in a way where it's very close to our live show, where the pit is already there, like our crew and our staff is already there. So immediately we can work even more the next day after a live show and produce more fights.
Oh, that's good stuff. It's good stuff. So it sounds like what you were almost saying there is, if setting up these amateur rules, if ISCA wanted to approach you guys, very specifically ISCA said, we want to do an amateur belt with these rules, we'll call it Karate Combat Amateur Rules, that's something that you guys would be potentially on board with.
I think we would have to discuss about the belt, but if they want to, like on their US Open, if they want to do a karate combat tournament there, amateur tournament, then they could definitely do that.
That's kind of big news. That's kind of a big one. That's saying a lot right there.
It's it's good for everybody. It's good for the fighters. It could be potentially good for people organizing events, because maybe they're gonna have another 100 people register to the tournament because of that. And it's really good for us because like we can scout talent, like we could see how these guys do within our rule set. And, next time maybe they're already pro fighters in karate combat.
Man, that's absolutely awesome. Okay, looking at social media numbers, there seems to be a lot of organizations that tout their numbers. Everyone from Power Slap, One Championship, and Karate Combat have all said that they are the number one viewed thing on social media. What is the truth here? What is going on? Everyone's number one on social media. What is the truth?
Yeah, I mean, I'm also, it's like everybody's the fastest growing sport,
Yeah.
fastest growing combat sport. So like you cannot say you're I mean, like, look at our numbers. We have 1.4 million on Instagram. We've got, man, like we were behind on YouTube. And then, we just grew, we almost doubled in like 3 months or so. Like we had 300K and now we've got over 500,000, and Facebook everywhere. It's like after one show, we've got over 4.5 million views altogether, and of course, that doesn't mean that everybody watches the fight from the first second until the last second, but for sure, these people met Karate Combat during that time. Maybe they saw a highlight on Instagram, maybe they saw something on TikTok, but like we always said, we're a digital first company, and like this also shows that our numbers are super high. And also I don't think you can meet anybody who has any interest in watching combat sports who scrolling through Instagram and they never met Karate Combat. So
right.
Like the question is, how do we transition the people who are only seeing highlights from us and they love our highlights, and some fights they watch, how do we transition them to watch a full event? And because we're not, if we mentioned bare knuckle before and some other organizations, they do pay like $500,000 for a fight, for having Mike Perry fight Luke Rockhold. Then some of these guys who are the headliners there, who bring in a lot of attention, are almost never the ones from the organization, right? It's never, it's always somebody who was ex-UFC, basically. Yes. That's about it. Or had a huge built-in audience like Jake Paul, even before stepping into the ring. But if you look at Karate Combat, most of the things we do, and I'm not saying we would never do X, Y, Z. I would love to do Machida, Luke Rockhold, for example. I would love to bring Jose Aldo into the pit. Like he's still young and, like he's a great striker. But, like when you look at Raymond Daniels fighting Rafael Agaev, who never fought full contact before Karate Combat. And, those are the ones producing numbers and doing great. And like, so we almost build from scratch, not only the league, but also our roster and, the fighters. So I think that's a different approach. It's a slower one. It's more difficult than just putting in a name and also, paying, I don't know, these guys hundreds of thousands of dollars. I'm not saying we're never going to do it, but right now I think the base and building the base is there. And, this is the approach we're taking.
Not taking those short-term kind of like quick flash in the pan. You guys are really looking at long-term growth from the sounds of everything, right?
Yeah, but I get it. I get it when like their biggest fight, like the main event and the co-main event is for ex-UFC fighters. I get it. Yeah, they get the views. Maybe they get even the ticket sales. So like as a business, I do understand. Although, like if you think about it, it's just, so I think it's something which is not sustainable, because you cannot put all these guys in every other, event. And it's also a little bit disrespectful to all these other guys you have, right? So for example, with the PFL, you have all these guys who got paid $1 million for winning the tournament. But then if somebody ex-UFC comes in, or Jake Paul gonna fight, then all these guys are like, you don't even know their names. So again, I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. I'm just saying that we try to balance. When we bring in people, we bring in Raymond Daniels and Gabriel Varga, who were like Glory and Bellator champions in kickboxing, but they also don't really found a home in MMA. They had no other chance. So like we are here now really competing as a striking league and putting in names and really good fights there. So I think we've got a really good position there on the market.
Absolutely. And I have taken a lot of your time here and I'm not going to stop. We're going to keep going. So let's talk a little about the karate coin a little bit here. Launching it, I can't imagine that was that has to be nerve wracking because like for guys like you and I, you know, we see fight sport, we see CEOs, we get it. It's tough. We get what the business is. Karate coin for you and I, like that had to be nerve wracking launching something where like, you know, this is tough. This is tough to really wrap our heads around here.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, that is something I wouldn't say like I'm not involved. I am involved, but that is not my part of the business. We've got only LARPing. That's his nickname, who is the brain behind the crypto stuff we do. He's been in the space for over 10 years. But if you look at Karate Combat, even our very first pilot event, we had the Bitcoin logo in the center. So like that was never something we were like super far from. But you know, he and I, we had a conversation on the phone, I think 1.5 years ago. And we said like, wouldn't it be cool if, you know, like the fans actually could have a say in whatever happens with the league? And, you know, I brought up the example, if let's say the football team, Manchester United, what happens there? What do the fans get? They get the experience, but they pay for everything, right? They pay for tickets, they pay for merchandising. All they get is the experience, which is fine. You know, like people love it. At the same time, people love to have input on what happens, who to sign next, you know, like what fights to make. And, you know, like we were on the phone and he said like, yeah, I think we could do this with crypto. And, you know, his idea was always how we could mix the fight sport and the sport with crypto, because he believes that this is a great synergy between the two. And he said we could do it. And I told him, listen, man, like we have to do it right now because someone else will do it.
Yeah.
And then he jumped on and still, you know, like every day, like he's killing it. And it's not easy at all. And, you know, one thing people don't realize, you know, the PFL's got their tokens, you know, like, and then all these socios and other tokens out there, but those are not, you know, like maybe you can buy merch, or maybe you get a discount somewhere, or maybe you can go to this exchange and, you know, like change it. Ours are completely different, right? This is a governing tool where you download the Karate Combat app, where then you get generated a wallet where you receive some of these karate tokens, or you can buy it on an exchange, and then you're able to vote on the fights. And the big thing is it's called up only gaming. We came up with the name. You cannot lose, right? Because otherwise it would be gambling. This is not gambling. You're just voting, and you can only receive more tokens than what you are voting on. So that's one thing. So it's fun, right? People like to get involved, and, you know, maybe there are some fighters you never knew who they were, but now you're much more invested on understanding who they are, because you might be able to win some more karate tokens. So that's almost like a customer acquisition tool for us, but also getting engagement for fighters people didn't know before. Now they will want to learn more, research more, and get involved on, you know, like event per event basis on being involved with the league. That's one thing. The other thing is what you can do with the tokens is vote on, for example, who Luis Hosha, the lightweight champion, should fight next. And how we're doing it is not like, okay, now everybody's going to decide how things will go. No. In the background, we're working on like who are the top 2 guys who should be fighting Luis Hosha, because this is 2-0, this is 3-0, you know, like they never fought before. So like we're gonna suggest, okay, here's the 2 options. Maybe Bruno Assis, maybe Gabriel Varga, who should be the next in line for Luis Hosha. But now the matchmaking is on the voters, on the karate token holders. So now they go on and they say like, okay, Gabriel Varga should get a shot, or Edgar Scrivers. And then we see the results, and then we have to go back as matchmakers and the league and talk to these fighters, and if they accept, then that's the fight to make. If they cannot because injured or whatever else is happening in their lives, then we go to the number 2 who get the second most votes. So that's another thing. Lastly, what we just did recently, we tested a rule change which was if the fight goes to a split score after 3 rounds or 5 rounds in a championship fight, then we go to an extra round, the sudden death round. And before, it was based on what the judges wanted. If out of 3 judges, 2 wanted to see an extra round, then we did go to an extra round. But now we put this in to the rule set, and the fans voted so that whenever it's a split score, not a split decision, it's at the end of the fight, it's a split score, then immediately and automatically we go to an extra round. And this was something the community, the karate token holders decided to go. And then we did have a vote. I think 93% voted yes to this, and then now we have it in rule set.
Man, it's so cool. I love a sudden death round kind of thing. Like that's the best thing. Yeah, I love that. Let me also ask you, you are, I might be wrong here. You're a watch collector?
I like that you do research. I'm like a fake watch collector, to be honest. I love watches. I've got a few nice ones. I've got a collection of, let's say, 4 or 5 watches, which are nice. But
4 or 5. What's your most expensive one? Where are we looking here?
I've got a Pepsi, a GMT Master 2 Rolex, which is they call it the Pepsi because it has the red and blue bezel, so that's why it's called the Pepsi. And it's the retail the good thing is that I have back in Budapest I have a very good friend at the authorized dealer. So I could actually buy it on retail, because that's where the real, not the value, but the thing is that with these watches, what they do, you go into the store and they tell you that you have to wait. You have to get into the line. So like, I want this watch. They said like, okay, another 1,000 people want this watch, but we're going to write your name here and going to call you. And this call never comes, right? So, but retail is like 50% less than you can buy it in the gray market. So that's why it's interesting, because normally what you do with a car, you go in to buy it in brand new in a store, and then 2 minutes later, a car is worth 10% less.
Yes,
you cannot resell with these watches. With scarcity, what happens? You cannot get it in the store. If you wanted to sell them in a gray market, then maybe you can double your money. And that's the same with the one I mentioned. I bought it on retail, but if I wanted, back in the days when I bought it like 2 years ago, I could maybe sell it for, 2.5x. So like that was, but I don't sell them. I'm keeping them, I'm using them, and hopefully I'm just gonna get the bigger collection.
Yeah, it's more of an investment than something that you actually wear, which is not dissimilar to your sneaker collection.
Yeah, again, it's I'm not a real guy in terms of like the watch collection or even the sneakers. I do love sneakers. I have a few. I never pay more than retail, so like I don't go and chase these rare ones. But whenever a nice one comes up, I'll have a few over here. Then I'll try to get on the sneaker app and then just get it. I'll show you.
Yeah, show me these.
I just got this last week.
Oh yeah. Beautiful, good stuff. Very nice, man.
But I like these questions. Actually.
Man, I know we're out of time here, so I'm going to ask you one more, and then I'll let you talk me out of here. But if I'm visiting Budapest, I'm only up in Scotland, so I'll go over to Hungary at some point in the next couple of years here. What restaurants or cafes do I need to hit up?
So if you go to Budapest, right now is the best time. Summertime is beautiful over there. I just got back to the US a week ago. I was there during the whole summer. So there's a place called Café Kör. Kör is circle in Hungarian, and actually it's one of my friend's spot, and he's been running it for over 20 years. And if you want not super expensive but like local food, then that's the best spot. It's right next to the Basilica, super location. And then you've got, like many good spots. One which my friends like, and we've been producing karate combat there for almost 2 years during COVID. There's a spot called Bestia. Yeah, it's like the beast, the lady beast. Then they've got really nice steak over there. They love to go there. But there are many good spots. But the really good stuff is not necessarily Budapest, but going down to Lake Balaton, which is our little sea. The Hungarian Sea is a small lake, but Hungary is also a small country. So we're very proud of the lake, and there's a lot of nice wineries there. So like whoever loves wine, they must go there because they're gonna be in a good time.
Man, next time I'm around, you're gonna treat me to some of this stuff?
Yes, I will.
All right, 1 minute left. Talk us on out of here, sir. Shout out who you need to shout out. Thank who you need to thank. Talk us. I think you guys got a show August 10th coming up this Thursday, and in September, but it's not quite officially announced. So please go ahead, sir.
Yes. So yeah, first of all, I want to thank you for this great interview. For our team at Karate Combat, like we've been working super hard. The Kumite comes out on Thursday at 7 p.m. East, and then we're gonna stream it every Thursday in August. And then that's gonna be awesome. It's something special we've never done before. Really good fighters, really good fights, some knockouts, and you have Bas, Samuel Eriksson there, and myself. You can never go wrong with that trio. And then in September 15, most likely we're back with our live shows, and we're going to the Dominican Republic.
Dominican Republic. Oh, it's gonna be a good one, man. Anyone who gets to go is lucky. That's gonna be a banger.
It's gonna be a good one.
Hey, thanks so much for your time, sir.
Thank you very much.